Alrighty, what's up guys? Mason the Brock Henderson. This is The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 12. Not tomorrow yet. Still kind of catching my breath just a little bit. Because, yeah, this ended very, very crazily. And especially the start, going from the start of this episode, I was kind of like, oh, is this going to be another one of those episodes where they're kind of building up, getting ready for the big, epic fight going on? No, this episode actually, it started off slow. Some of it was good, some of it was eh. Um, if you've watched my other reviews, you know how I feel about, like, forced romances, bullcrap relationship drama, all that stuff. Not a big fan of it in TV shows. No TV show really does it well. The only show that I've actually enjoyed it in is How I Met Your Mother because it was used for comedy. And that's the only time that it really works is when the romance stuff, whether it's a love triangle, whether it's the typical romance cliches, all that stuff. If it's used for comedy, it's normally done well. And on top of that, the comedy in that show is just brilliant. But also, it really did have a purpose. It wasn't romance for the sake of, oh, let's just put our characters into relationships. No, it was purposeful. The whole point of the show was everything happens for a reason, and that was shown in the relationships that the main character was having. In this show and in other shows, the romance just feels like, oh, well, we're gonna start, things have calmed down as far as walkers and stuff like that. The first half of the season was all bunch of action stuff. So now we're gonna slow it down a bit and, what the hell, we'll put our characters into relationships as well. So it's not really handled well. In the last episode with Michonne and, not 2 episodes ago, with Michonne and Rick, it was like, yeah, we've had build up for these characters before, but it wasn't really like romantic build up until you got to the beginning of this episode when it showed them living together. It almost did feel like they were a family already, but there was no indication of that really beforehand. And so all of a sudden it just pops up in this episode, and by the end of it, they're getting together. It's like, well, based on this episode, sure, I can see it, but I mean, based on the other episodes, I don't really see it that well. So me personally didn't really get into it as much, but they did the same thing here with Carol and I think his name is Tobin, because it shows her bringing cookies to him at the beginning of this episode. This is the first interaction, really, like a real interaction between them that we've seen, and it's a bit flirty. I'm just like, are they seriously going to put these two together now? Like, not that they've never interacted before, but I definitely would have remembered if there was any romantic interaction between these two. And there really wasn't that I can think of. And all of a sudden, at the beginning of this episode, now they're kind of flirting together. And I'm just like, you're going to put them together, aren't you? And sure enough, a little bit later, Carol can't sleep, so she's out walking around smoking, and Tobin's sitting on his porch, and I'm just like, well, there you go. So it really wasn't handled all that well. Other relationship stuff going on. You've got Abraham with probably the worst breakup of all time. And I gotta admit, it wasn't entirely funny. The Eugene part was pretty funny. But as far as Abraham goes, I kind of expected it to be not good. Like, his character is just, he's not a romantic. He's kind of becoming one with Sasha just a bit, but he's not a romantic at all. So he honestly thinks that the best way to do this is just, I just need to leave. And I can't say anything about it. I'm just going to walk out, and it will be easier that way. It really, really doesn't work at all. Although his explanation is kind of what I was suspecting last week whenever they were, he was kind of trying to decide between Rosita and Sasha. That was kind of my thinking, was that with Rosita, it was like they just got together because physically, they wanted somebody to be with, but not necessarily in a romantic fashion. It's more just like that they're physically needing something, and so that's what it's there for. Um, Whereas with Sasha, he actually has an emotional connection with her, and that's kind of he doesn't tell her about Sasha, but he does tell her, when I met you, I thought you were the only woman on the face of the planet. You're not anymore. I'm just like, see, that's kind of what I thought. Like back then, it was simple. It was just them sleeping together. That's all it was. Now that they actually have other people that they're living with, they actually have a sense of security. They're trying to settle down and live again. It does make sense that he wants more of a connection than just, oh, let's just have sex, you know. So I'm okay with that part, even though it is relationship stuff, because it is kind of for the character growth of Abraham himself. You know, before he was just he liked killing walkers and he liked sleeping with Rosita. That was it. Now he's actually starting to grow a bit. He's actually developing more inside of him than he thought he had. So that's an interesting story that it's taking. You've got Tara and Denise. I still feel like they're showing us this to kill off one of them. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be Tara or Denise. I feel like it's going to be Tara because of what she said in this episode. She tells Denise that she loves her, trying to cover for the fact that she's done the whole raid a place before with the governor. Um, but she tells her that she loves her, and Denise like, I'll say it when you get back. And I'm just like, if she comes back. It just felt like it was setting up for that, you know, that kind of, oh yeah, she'll tell you when if you get back, if, not when, it's if. So I kind of feel like they're just setting that up to break it apart. I think that's it as far as the relationship stuff goes. But before they actually hit the road, there are a couple other interesting parts to talk about. One is Rick in the church giving a speech, telling them that they need to take this group on before they try to strike first. And so he's trying to convince them to go. You've got Morgan, of course, that stands up and says, we need to give these people the option to live, because Morgan is just completely intent on not killing anybody. Which still understand why, but at the same time, just like you're living in a fantasy world if you really think that's going to happen. Especially with hearing about Negan and how bad he is, you really have to be crazy to think that you can not kill and expect to keep on living. Which I think is going to end up being the death of Morgan for this season. I feel like Negan's going to roll into town. Morgan's going to have the chance to kill him, but give him a chance to live. And Negan is not going to be the same as this wolf that he gave the chance to live, where Morgan just beats him easily. Negan might actually get better of Morgan, even though Morgan's kind of a ninja. So, kind of an interesting storyline there. But then after Morgan says his little spiel, Aaron stands up and says, I can't remember his exact words, but pretty much saying that if they have the power to do this, they should take action, because he didn't want to see what happened with the wolves happen again. So that was an interesting thing, and nice to see Aaron kind of standing up and being like, we're not going to take this. And then the other interesting thing is Carol and what's going on with her. Aside from the whole Tobin rushed romance thing, she lays a cookie on Sam's grave. So you kind of wonder, does she realize that she's the reason that Sam is dead? Like, does she realize that everything she said affected him in a way that got him killed? Does she understand all that? Or is she just, she kind of developed an emotional connection to this kid, even though she was kind of being a complete creep whenever she talked to him? Did she just feel sorry for him and just, cared about him as if he was her son? Don't know. But then on top of that, she's got a journal that she was writing down initials in. I'm assuming it's all the humans that she's had to kill. Maybe, possibly, not sure. But if so, it kind of makes you wonder, does she is her opinion, is it starting to change? Because we know when she first came to Alexandria, it was kind of a, she pretended to be all, oh yeah, I'm just so sweet, and then in the background she's like, Rick, you may have to kill these people. She was kind of playing the part while still holding on to that part of her that's like, we have to be ready to do whatever it takes to survive. Is she questioning that part of herself? Because I think that part's what's kept her alive for most of this. I mean, you think about what happened with the Terminus and stuff like that. She saved them because of how beast she is. Uh, the stuff when the wolves attacked. I mean, she saved a lot of lives that night because of her skills and her willingness to take people on, uh, and kind of take on a role of not herself. So I don't know. I'm worried that this is one of those moments where I've seen kind of this thing happening before in a show where a character has done a lot of wrong, and their last act before they die is a sacrificial act to kind of atone for those wrongdoings. And if she starts to see these deaths as wrong, and it could be that she ends up sacrificing herself by the end of the season, and I really don't want to see Carol go. I mean, she's not my favorite character out of all of them, but she is a good character, and I've enjoyed seeing her, uh, her transformation really from, an abused wife to a loving mother to a broken mother to kind of a hard ass, somebody who wasn't going to take any crap and just really changed into somebody who could take on any role and really play into a part. Um, I might start yawning in a second because it's late, but yeah, it kind of feels like that's where they're leaning. Like she's starting to realize everything she's done wrong, and it's affecting her in a way that it might end up causing her to sacrifice herself. So I don't know if that's where they're going, but anyway, so that's all happening at the beginning. It's a bit slow. It's dragging a bit. The relationship stuff is like, ugh, for me. And then they get on the road. And I'm just like, okay, so what's gonna happen from here? They kill some walkers. Get one that looks a bit like a Gregory from Hilltop. Yeah, the leader of Hilltop. Get one that looks like him, so they pretend like they're delivering his head. They get to the compound. These two guys out front are like mocking Andy, the guy from Hilltop that is delivering the head. I was a little disappointed to see them go, just because they could have had a lot of fun with these characters, and maybe there are other characters out there like these two. But yeah, they're creepy, but at the same time, it's kind of an enjoyable creepy. Like, it makes you laugh whenever the one guy picks up the head, and like, and starts talking for the. It's like, these guys are creepy, but I love it. Uh, and could you imagine if everybody in their group is like that? They just make random jokes. The one guy kept having all these really crude nicknames for the guy. So it kind of a little bit of a wasted opportunity, but hopefully not. Hopefully there are other characters like them. Um, you got, so they start taking the compound. Building up into this, you've got Glenn talking to Heath, the guy with the dreads. I remembered his name. You got them talking out in the woods, and Glenn starts talking about how he hasn't killed anyone, and that was a topic that came up whenever he died in the first half of the season. Was that he was the only one out of the main group that hadn't killed anyone, and how that may have come back to affect him. So that was kind of a big talking point going in, is that neither of them had to kill anyone, and so it's kind of like will they be able to do it? I had this sinking feeling something's gonna go wrong, obviously, because it's not gonna be. Since when do things just go smoothly on the show? Since when do they just go into this compound and stab, stab, stab? Okay, we got everything, guys. No, it's not gonna be that easy. So I kept worrying that Glenn was not gonna be able to do it, or Heath wasn't gonna be able to do it. And then Glenn goes up to the guy and stabs him. I'm like, wow, he did it. And then Heath goes, and he kind of like hesitates, and then Glenn puts his hand on him, pushes it away, and he does it for him so he doesn't have to kill. Um, and I loved and hated this scene for two reasons. I loved it because you can see the emotion on Glenn's face when he does it. He talked about, do you have you ever experienced something that causes you to not be able to sleep at night because every time you close your eyes you can see it? He's obviously talking about Nick shooting himself in the head right in front of him. That was a very traumatic thing. But then he's talking about it, and you can see whenever he stabs the guy the first time, you can just see how much of an effect it has on his face. Like, you could just see him go, like, it just really emotionally affects him, and you can tell that it's not okay with him. But then he does it to protect Heath. I'm just like, okay. And then he looks up, and there on the wall is like all of these photos of people that have just had their faces ripped off or shot off or something like that. I didn't like this scene because of that. It was almost like you could have just had Glenn kill the guy, show the emotional, like, battle he's going through, and that would have been good. But then to show those photos is like saying, well, if you felt bad, Glenn, there's a reason not to. These guys are definitely bad. Wouldn't it have been much more intriguing and mysterious if we didn't ever find out if these guys were really that bad? Obviously the guards up front, they showed them, they were total jerks, totally deserved to get killed. But what if not everybody in there was completely bad? What if some of them were forced to work for this group? What if them were forced? So to show those pictures is kind of taking that away a bit. It's kind of saying, oh no, this guy's definitely a bad guy. I mean, look, he has this little memoriam thing where he keeps. It may be his victims. It may just be people he found with their heads caved in. Who knows? But either way, this guy's a total creep. So you should feel totally okay about killing him. That kind of takes away from the whole point of, are they right or wrong in doing this? Well, based on that, they're right. I mean, if they didn't kill these people, obviously these people are crazy and totally evil, and they would have come and killed them. But what if not all of them were what if not all of them were bad? That's something to think about. And obviously, once everything goes wrong, these people, start shooting at them, and it's now they're killing in self-defense, which is completely different than just going in and murdering somebody. So that's my one issue with this scene, is that it was handled well up until they showed the photos. Then it was kind of like a cop-out. Like, if you were questioning before, are they right in going in and just stabbing people in their sleep? Those photos kind of made it seem like, yeah, they're completely right, because this guy deserves to die. So I don't know. It kind of upset me that they didn't handle that scene very well. But anyway, like I said, they're going through the building. They're taking out people. Sasha and Abraham are trying to break into a room. A guy comes up from behind Abraham, tries to kill him. Abraham and Sasha both stab him, but not before he's able to pull on the alarm, so that's where everything goes wrong. And after that, it's just an epic fight scene. I mean, whether or not you enjoy this show in particular, their action scenes are almost always handled well. Whether it's whether stabbing some walkers, or if it's actually taking on people like in this episode. I mean, they handle it well. The fighting, the shooting, all of it is just done very well. The one scene where Glenn and Heath are running down the hallway, and before this, they're showing like all of them running towards a door, and they're all like shooting the handle. They're trying to break off the handle, trying to break into the room, and it's done so well to kind of parallel. They're all in these different parts, but they're all doing the same thing, trying to break into a door. When Glenn and Heath break into it was pretty much the armory room, and then they just grab like these huge machine guns off the wall and they just rip through the door into the people behind it. That was awesome. I was just like, yeah. But then it kind of makes you think, wait a minute, now Heath's killed people too. I mean, it was in self-defense. It wasn't straight up just in their sleep. But it's still kind of like Glenn. The whole point of the conversation was that Glenn and Heath hadn't killed any human. They've killed walkers, but they haven't killed humans. Whether or not you're murdering them in your sleep, or shooting them through the door in self-defense before they kill you, that's still killing. And Glenn, it felt kind of weird because Glenn stopped him from doing it to do it himself, and it felt like, okay, so you're protecting him so he doesn't have to kill anybody, and then like 10 minutes later, they're shooting a hole through the door, killing the people behind. It's like, well, now that scene felt pointless. And it's not exactly a gripe, it's not a nitpick with the show. It's more just like the story kind of makes you feel a bit hopeless at times. Like, that whole thing with Glenn, what he did for Heath, is rendered completely pointless a few minutes later because he ends up having to kill people anyway because they're trying to kill them. It's kind of like, that sucks. It's not a bad writing scene. It's not poorly written, poorly edited, anything like that. It's just this story kind of makes you feel hopeless at times because, oh, it's okay, Heath. You don't have to kill anybody right now. 3 minutes later, well, I guess I did anyway. That sucks. Um, so yeah, it was very, very kind of not heartbreaking, but it was a little bit emotional to see that. Um, and then of course you got Ninja Jesus like coming out of nowhere. The guy's like gun to shoot them, and then Jesus just comes out of nowhere, pop, kills him. It's like, where did you come from? And then I'll get to the final scene in a second because I do want to talk about what else is going on the outside. You've got Carol and Maggie. Carol's kind of, she's still going through her moment, but when she sees Maggie, she kind of stands up to Rick and says, "Why is she out here?" To which Rick replies, "It's her decision," which is true. But Carol does have a good point. Why is the pregnant woman out here? Why would you do that? Especially because of how this episode ends. I'll get to that in a second, but she does have a little moment with Maggie where Maggie wants to go help them after the alarm sounds, and Carol's just like, no, stay. So yeah, very, very interesting to see kind of why they decided to do that and what the repercussions are going to end up being. You've also got Gabriel and Tara in the van with Jesus, and then Andy, and I think his name was Craig, the guy that went to get back. So they're all sitting in the van. There's kind of the scene that I talked about before with Tara and Denise. She talks about that with Father Gabriel. It was kind of funny because she's like, "So are you still a priest?" And then he starts talking. He's like, "Rick and Carl show me how to use guns and what to do with them." And it's just like, so is that a yes? But anyway, she asks him if he's a priest, and then goes on to tell him about the conversation that she had with her girlfriend. Just like, and then it's funny because of kind of the perception that most Christians, whenever they hear about homosexuality, are like, "Oh, back demon." As a Christian myself, I can tell you that it's a sin. Like, lying's a sin, so it's not exactly. It's socially the not the consequences, but socially it shows a lot more than a lie will, because of our society and how it is now. But as far as like how Christians should feel about it, it's like if you're that upset about homosexuality and then you lie, you're right on the same page there, buddy. So you're no better. But I don't know. It was just kind of funny that she's asking him, "Are you a priest?" and then goes on and starts telling him about how she lied to her girlfriend. It's just kind of a funny story. It's almost like if you walk into a church and you start just pouring out your soul about how you lied this one time to your partner in crime that you killed a bunch of people with. Obviously not on the same level, but and in the stereotypical Christian's mind, it is on the same level. Um, but anyway, she does kind of bring up that fact that she lied to her about not having done anything like this before. Um, but then there's kind of a I feel like once again they're doing this to kill her off or Denise off, just to make it more emotional. Because Gabriel's like, "Well, do you love her?" And she's like, "Yes." It's like, great. That's gonna make it hurt even more whenever you die, isn't it? It's like, what? Why did they do these things? Um, and of course, I don't know what it. I really don't know what else it could mean other than that. Like, it just feels like they're setting up for it to be more emotional when she dies. But then they get out of the truck to help, and very, very interesting scene with Father Gabriel because she, he and Tara are like shooting some of the guys that are trying to escape, and then Father Gabriel goes up to this one guy who's already got 2 bullet wounds, and he's got a gun, and he starts saying something to him about oh, you a priest, Padre? Like starts sort of mocking him, and he starts quoting scripture. But the way he does it is so funny because he's quoted scripture before, but before it made him sound like a bit of a coward, like he was cowering, like quoting scripture, like like quoting all the past two, not two. Well, I guess the past 2 times, but what I'm trying to say is this episode and then the first episode of this half of the season, he's talked like a priest, but when he says it just sounds so badass because he's standing over the guy with a rifle and just starts quoting scripture about how my father tells me there will be mansions and streets made of gold and all this stuff, like talking about what's gonna happen after he dies, and then shoots the guy. Amen. I'm just like, holy crap, Gabriel, what happened? When did you get this inside of you? And the other line I'm thinking of is when he's talking to the Alexandrians. He's like, we pray for God to deliver us. And he has. He's given us the strength, or the courage, to fight for ourselves. I'm just like, that's pretty inspirational. Where did that come from? I honestly thought he was going to die sometime this season, so I feel like they are redeeming him for him to die, or something like that. I don't know. To be honest, whenever I watch this show, I'm just like, okay, so what are they doing with this character? What is it going to mean whenever they die? Because it feels like at some point all of these characters are going to die. Just some of them aren't going to die until the very, very end. I feel like they could do anything with Daryl because he's not from the comics. But not knowing how the comics end, I feel like Rick might die in the last episode. Like, I just feel like that's what it's building up to. Like, he's doing all these great things with his group, but in the end, it's just gonna be what is he gonna do to save his family? He'll make the ultimate sacrifice if he has to. And I feel like that's kind of what they're leading to in the very end. But anyway, that's just speculation for me. So all that stuff that happened on the outside, the final scene. First of all, not normally do I notice such really, really poor editing quality, but they went in. It was dark, but it was it was right before dawn, so okay, that's why it's still dark. It's probably like 5 and the sun comes up 6. They weren't in there for that long, and then they come out and it looks like it's almost noon. Like, what? Like, you couldn't have shown the sun rising, or maybe have it kind of semi-bright, looks like the sun is just now coming up, but to have it be like where it's daytime, it's just like, yeah, they were actually in there for a couple hours. They were? It didn't feel like a couple hours. Like, unless they did some serious scrounging after they killed everybody. Anyway. But so they come out. You can see Glenn kind of struggling with what he did. He said something to Heath that I missed because it was kind of soft and stuff was going on in my room that was loud. So I missed that line, but you could see him still struggling. He hugs Tara, like you can tell things aren't good with him. Um, and then the way it ends, like first of all, you've got Michonne saying, "Which one of those is Negan?" I'm just like, none of them, because he's not gonna die that easily. He better not die easily. Yeah, because I heard recently that that Terminus was a big deal in the comics that they kind of skipped over, just skimmed through. This is one that they've been building up for a while, so if they just skim over this, that would be terrible. But I don't think they're going to. I think they are going to handle this well. Uh, but I think the whole point was they thought that was the group, that was it. Everybody inside that compound, that was it. I don't think that's it. I think the group is a lot bigger than they realize. I think they're starting to realize it after what happens because the guy's leaving on a motorcycle, which I think is the one that that couple stole from Daryl. So it seems like maybe Negan got a hold of those two after they, held Daryl up at crossbow point or whatever, at gunpoint, and took his stuff. I think that Negan got a hold of them, and so that's where he recognizes the bike from. I think it seems like that's what he was saying. So they take him, they shoot him off the bike, and Daryl starts punching him and asking where he got the bike, and then all of a sudden they hear a voice over radio. It's a woman's voice saying that they've got Maggie and Carol, and that's where it ends. So yeah, I I'm so happy with the ending of this episode. Like, to be honest, going into this, the first 20 minutes, I was just like, this is okay. Seems like it's gonna be another slow or semi-slow episode where we're finding out more information, and then they end with the taking of the compound. And I'm just like, well, that was easy. That was way too easy. Well, that was extremely easy. This is Negan's group. They've been building up how bad this group is, and we took the compound that easily. I mean, come on. And then everything goes wrong, and I'm just like, well played, show. I can't believe I fell for it, but I did. Things never go that easy. And obviously something bad's coming next. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who these women are, how they're related to Negan's group, if they're maybe a part of it. I feel like we're going to learn that Negan has, like, a lot of different groups. Like, he has the one guarding the storehouse. He's got this little group here that kind of, maybe they're mercenaries. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it could be really, really bad next episode. But they did a very good job of really kind of making it seem like it was going this one direction and then ramping it up and taking it in a completely different direction. They did a very good job of that here. And I mean, I'm happy to see that it's not just staying stagnant. It's not, okay, we had an epic opening. Now here, take a break this next episode. Here, we're learning some more information. And now let's go. I thought it was, it felt like it was going to be a bit more explaining before we really got into it. But it looks like we're really starting to get into it now. So I'm excited for next week. I don't know where they're going with this. I don't know. And yeah, could be really, really interesting. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed. I don't think so. I think that's about it. So yeah, I'm excited for the rest of the season. I'm excited to see where they're going with this. Are you? Let me know down below. Tell me what you think is going to happen next. As always, if you've read the comics, if you know what's coming next, please no spoilers. I've already learned too much about this show, more than I really want to know. Just based on, I see a Facebook post pop up and I happen to glance at it and I'm like, oh, see, that ruined something for me. So yeah, no spoilers. One other thing, really fast, if you haven't already clicked away. The Morgan thing. I don't know what he's doing there. It looks like he's building something Well, I mean, he's obviously building something, but it looks like he's building something maybe resembling a cage of some sort. Um, I don't know. At first, I was just like, "What is this gonna be? The Negan face reveal or something?" But then he pulls it up and it's Morgan. I'm just like, "Oh, what is he doing?" Because I don't know, the way they were setting it up, it kind of made it seem like, "Oh, this is Negan and he's about to find out about a storehouse being taken." So yeah, I don't know what he's doing. It looks like he's building something in the basement. I have no idea what's gonna happen there, but you can see him kind of reacting to knowing what Rick did and knowing that all the lives that he feels like he could have saved are no longer there. Um, so still don't really agree with him on that, but I don't necessarily completely agree with Rick just going out and murdering people in cold blood. So I don't know how I feel about that, but anyway, um, yeah, leave me some comments below. We can discuss some stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for more Walking Dead, and I'll see you at the next review. Peace out.